Hi everyone, Sara Jackson here, tennis instructor at El Macero Country Club. Today I'm going to walk you through an exercise that helps you practice one of the most important components of your serve, and that is the toss. If you've come to any of my clinics at the club or elsewhere, you may have seen this exercise before, or at least a version of it. And what I always like to tell people when it comes to practicing this particular skill is that you can practice it from home. So it actually makes the ideal exercise to do during this shelter-in-place time. So what we're gonna do, first thing what you need a ball, you need your racket, and then you need some kind of a target, right? I've got this kind of plastic dot thing here. You don't have to have one of these. You could use a paper plate. You could use even a piece of paper, right? It doesn't even have to be round. You just need some kind of a target, a flat target. Okay, now I'm standing somewhere where I've got a line right in front of me, and I'm gonna pretend like that line is the baseline, okay? I would set up behind the baseline just like I would if I were going to practice my serve, and then I'm gonna put my target down. So the target placement might vary a little bit person to person. Essentially, it's going to be a little bit out in front and to the right if you're right-handed. This could be mirrored if you're a left-handed player. And then down in front of the baseline. This is mirroring where I would want the ball to land after I toss the ball up for my serve if I didn't actually go ahead and hit the ball, okay? So this is where I'm gonna have mine. Another visual, if you're trying to figure out where to place your target, is to just in the air in front of you, picture a clock, right? We've got 12 o'clock up here, 6 o'clock down here, 3 o'clock out to the side. And most people have a spot for their serve that's somewhere around 1 o'clock. So if you can kind of picture that in the air and then draw an imaginary line straight down, that gets you a good location for your target as well. Okay, now from here, I've got my racket in my right hand, and I do think it's important to do this with your racket in your hand, even though you're not going to hit the serve, because that's what you have in your hand when you're tossing the ball, when you're actually playing. I'm going to hold my ball out just like I was getting ready to serve, toss my ball up, and see where it lands. Now, if you could see where my ball landed, it wasn't on my target. My goal is to get the ball to land on my target each time. So my ball right now is landing closer into my body. What that would result in if I was actually going to hit those tosses when I was playing is a serve where my racket was more like this versus out here like this. Big difference, okay? So we're working on that placement of the toss. That was my best one yet. It takes a lot of repetitions to get really consistent at where your toss is. But the placement is really important. Now, in tennis, you can actually toss the ball, a number of times and catch it if you don't like it, and before you decide to hit it. But in my experience, most players aren't that patient. And so they end up hitting the ball no matter how good the toss is when they're playing. And that's one of the reasons why our serves can be inconsistent. So working on that placement is the first thing. Now there's two other things I want to point out as you're practicing your toss. The first is one goal you want to have, and this helps you, again, with the consistency, with the control of where the ball is whether or not the ball is spinning. Okay, if I let the ball kind of fling off of my fingers, I'm going to have a lot less control on it. So one of my goals as I'm working on my toss is simply to let the ball come out of my hand, and I should actually be able to read the writing on the ball when it's up in the air. That gives me a better sense of control than if the ball is spinning really fast. Okay, so we've got placement, we've got spin, or rather lack of spin, and then the last thing is height. Okay, now when you're doing this drill, ideally, if you reach your racket up to its highest point and have it a little bit in front of you and look at that spot, that's the height you want to toss the ball to. Okay, you want the ball to peak up there where your racket is. If it goes lower than that, you'd be hitting the serve too low and just kind of pushing it over the net. If it goes higher than that, now you've got a situation where you've got to wait for the ball to come back down before you swing at it, and that creates a timing situation that's difficult, okay? So you can mistime it, resulting in mishits, and that's also not a good thing. So ultimately, we're working on the right height of the toss as well. And in the beginning with this drill, if you want to focus on placement, it's okay to have a shorter toss. Let me get that ball. It's okay to have a shorter toss like I just did. It's a little bit easier to be accurate, but then work your way up to having the proper height as well, okay? The last thing I'll say about this drill is you can make it easier or harder depending on the size of your target, right? If you're starting out with a target and man, you just don't feel like you're hitting it at all, grab a bigger target. Start bigger and then work your way down to a smaller target. If you grab a target in the beginning and you're hitting it every single time and you've got the proper height and your toss has no spin on it, then challenge yourself and grab a target that's a little bit smaller. So this is a way that you can practice that toss, get it to be super consistent so that when we get to go back out to the tennis courts, you've got that ball right where you want it every time you go up to hit your serve. I hope you enjoy trying this at home. I'll see you next time.